Good morning, everyone. Yes, today is the 26th of May, 2020. I want to welcome you as you come in. I'm Roy Potter, and my guest, Debbie, is with us today. You might remember her from a few days ago, about a week ago, actually, I think,
Yes.
when we did some information on bartending, and we had a good time. Again, I want to thank everybody for coming in. I think you'll find this fascinating. You all know that I hold Trump's feet to the fire. That doesn't mean that I wouldn't want to back him up. I mean, compared to all the other things that are out there that could get into that office or any of those offices, of course. But as Americans, we're supposed to be known for holding those elected officials and bureaucrats' feet to the fire, at least when it comes to the Bill of Rights, if nothing else. So that's the reason why I'm very critical all of the time, and whenever those mistakes are made, we have to be right there to hold them into place. However, Debbie, as you can tell from the title of this video today, this live stream, is a Democrat, and she is a Trump supporter, and as a result, she is hated by Democrats. One of the things I want to point out about Debbie, and I already asked her if I could do this, so I'm not doing this impromptu. I said, you're not a typical Democrat. You're not leftist Marxist, and you're not a typical Democrat female woman.
Yes.
She's beautiful. She's not the size of a house, and she takes good care of herself. And yes, I'm slamming some of those leftist Marxist Democrat women because they, us guys that see them, I know that's not nice, but I can't help it. Ladies should be nice to look at. Now, some people have problems with, chemical balance, or, they can't digest their food well, or whatever the excuse is. But the fact of the matter, you break all the paradigms. Don't you think so, everybody? And I'm asking all the women and the men out there. Debbie breaks the paradigm, right? Yes, I think she does. So anyway, I thought I'd just kind of roll out that way. Actually, Debbie's going to kind of control the subject matter today. I figured that would be the best thing. And she's going to cover a few topics, probably a couple of them not in a great amount of detail. One is going to be kind of a roundabout, because you don't want to step on somebody else that you might want to bring up here, about some investigations that they've made into the bad communities, especially in the state of Utah, but really they're all over the country and all over the world. She's going to kind of touch on those only because, just a little bit, just to let you know that, even Democrats know about this, and they've done some really good work. But I'll let her cover that. The only thing that I'm going to cover this morning before I give Debbie the floor are just a couple things. I look at my notes on my phone now, and this is what we're going to talk about today, myself anyway. First of all, high-impact vlogs. Brian did a great thing the other day. I think it was yesterday or day before, where he showed President Bolsonaro of Brazil, who sees his mayors and the governors of his different provinces or states or whatever they call them down there, how they've acted so dictatorially and tyrannically. And he's calling for the Ministry of Defense and the Ministry of Internal Affairs to arm the people, to tell them to buy weapons, because that's how concerned he is with the diktats that are coming out of those tyrants, sort of like our Michigan governor, our California governor, our mayor of Chicago, our mayor of New Orleans, a mayor of D.C., etc. You get my drift. That is one of the things that I appreciate about Bolsonaro. Now, he said this in a private meeting, but it was recorded, and then he addressed it again later. So go to Brian on High Impact Vlogs and look at his report on that. It's really very good, and I know a lot of other people have caught up with that. This is the United States of America. We're about to lose our country, okay? We just got to look at it obviously here and admit it to ourselves. And it's going to take the people standing up. Am I saying a violent revolution? No. But those people that are out there doing the things against our folks, arresting mothers in playgrounds, shutting down small businesses because they're non-essential by whose diktat and whose decree, these things are wrong. Chasing people away from beaches, threatening. You saw the situation in Sacramento with the demonstration that was there with the former Marine who is now a medical doctor, and he addressed those police and made them stand down. We need more of that. And they need to know that they're no longer in control of this particular thing. And this is going to get nasty, but we're at a really important time here where what we as a people do next is going to make the difference either for good or bad. So anyway, if you haven't seen the situation from Brian on High Impact Vlogs on that situation with Bolsonaro, please go look at that. That's the first thing I wanted to bring up. And then of course, I talked too much, so then I lost this. I wanted to also bring up that somebody sent me, and I'll just say, Janet, you sent me some information here. By the way, I haven't had enough coffee this morning, so I'm stumbling around a little bit. Plus, I'm sitting next to Debbie, so that's going to cause a little. The SCOTUS just ruled that any forced medical procedures, specifically vaccinations, are illegal and violate the 14th Amendment. We work in quiet ways. I'm not sure what you're talking about, Janet. I would have written you directly, but I've tried to find this ruling, and I can't find it. So if you would DM me again on the reference for that, or anybody else that knows anything about it, again, this lady sent me this information, and it's that the Supreme Court of the United States just ruled that any forced medical procedures, specifically vaccinations, are illegal and violate the 14th Amendment. You know that Alan Dershowitz came out and made an argument that it is constitutional. Of course, I totally disagree with Dershowitz on that, like I do so many things. But that's another issue I wanted to bring up, so if you can give me that source, I'd sure appreciate it. Dan Bongino came out, and I wanted to read a tweet from him that I received, and most of you who follow him received it too. This is interesting. Let me read it. It's from a few days ago, but this is what he says. What clueless libs and media activists are completely missing in this crisis is that trust in government has been decimated. Isn't that true? Fauci, Birx, all the mayors, all the governors that have done all these things, you are seeing firsthand. And like I've said, I agree that Trump has definitely outed them by doing some of the things he's done, obviously. You see how incompetent and how corrupt these people are. And that's what Dan Bongino's talking here. Let me finish it. People are waking up to the reality of government.
It's true.
Mind control. Government comes from the Latin gubermente, which means mind control. Did you know that? Yeah. It's a self-serving enterprise. Look at the FBI. Talk about a RICO enterprise. Populated with power-hungry individuals acting in their interests, not yours. So I wanted to say that. Give Dan some kudos for coming out and bringing that up to us. And that's all I'm going to cover this morning, and I'm going to turn the floor over to Debbie. Maybe she can tell us, I guess to start out, why you decided to support Trump.
Oh, I decided to support Trump from the very beginning because as a Democrat, I saw how much the Republican Party hated him. They did not want him as their candidate.
Yeah.
When it was 14 of those guys standing up on the stage, and you had all their, you had Bush, and you had Rubio, and you had all the standard, they wanted anyone but Trump.
Yeah.
And even conservative magazines, and, where they would support their candidate, he didn't even get the support from his Republican or conservative magazines. Like the Deseret News here in Utah did not endorse Trump for a conservative state in Utah. I thought that was amazing. So I've liked him just because he broke status quo and he broke the Republican Party in a good way. Because I really stopped being a Republican because it was overtaken by rhinos. Like the fact that Paul Ryan is gone off of the face of the earth, no longer putting his little pretty face out there, makes me happy.
Now, isn't that a little different than you may have thought? So, I've told you, I'm going to interject here. I've told you all that my wife, Carol, was a Democrat, and she was this kind of Democrat, okay? Very supportive of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, had some different ideas about what government should be able to do.
Yeah.
But by the same token, doesn't want to violate the personal liberties of the people, and that's what we're looking at here with Debbie.
Well, and I feel like the Democrat Party, like I told you this, has been hijacked.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Maybe you
no
can
longer
explain that.
It's no longer the Blue Dog Party. It's no longer, where you have a standard values. It's almost like anyone who has core values that are conservative in the Democrat Party, you no longer belong.
You're shunned.
Yeah.
And
the fact that I would be a Democrat and pro-life means I'm not really a Democrat. The fact that I would, be a Democrat and support gun rights means I'm not really a Democrat. Whereas before, they would never distinguish it, but it's basically been taken over by the cancel culture.
Right.
And, you know.
Yeah. And
the label culture.
Right. And I just want to address those. Again, you folks know how I feel about Trump, and I'm not here to push that aspect today, okay?
I totally love him.
Yeah, she loves him, okay? Now, I'm coming from a slightly different area because, again, I see a lot of you people on here saying, and not unjustly, I'm not saying I disagree with it, that Trump is part of the problem, and I agree with that. But that's not the purpose of our show today. I don't want to hear about that today. I'm not even addressing it, okay? I want us to look at somebody who has their head together and understands the issues and is not a leftist Marxist in the Democrat Party. That's what I'm interested in. And Trump, to them, was the only alternative.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. I love it just because, like I said, Democrats didn't like him. Republicans didn't like him.
Right.
And it's true. A lot of people don't like him. I like that. It's hard to not be liked, you know?
Sure.
It's usually we want to be popular.
Right.
We want to be accepted. We want people saying nice things about us.
Well, Trump is known for wanting to be loved. Yeah. He's known for that, and I'll give it to him. He put himself out there. For all you folks who know all the other details, it still went there where he was willing to step up to that. And that's what attracted me to him originally, too. Definitely. I just want us to get back on the right track. That's all I'm after. But go ahead.
Here's the thing that I love that has happened lately in the mainstream media.
Okay.
So you have the Me Too movement now with Joe Biden's controversy of he's a hair sniffer. And he's obviously done more than sniff someone's hair. And there's just a blatant...
That's almost disgusting,
Well, there's just a blatant disregard for the believe her. And, the fact that they drug Kavanaugh through the mud.
Right.
They drug Trump through the mud for just innuendo and also just bad. I'm sorry. Everyone talks like that. And if everyone were hot mic'd, you'd catch everyone saying something completely inappropriate at any point in the day about someone.
Right. No,
So,
I agree.
I don't really think that words should be like how we judge a person. So I gave Trump a hall pass on that one.
Well, so did I.
But the thing is, then they act like that Joe Biden's behavior is like
almost acceptable,
a non-issue.
Yeah,
we don't even have to discuss this. Like, let's just push that under the rug. And it's interesting because I have a lot of women friends who are Democrats and who are, champions of the Me Too movement because of their own experience in that world, and they have been Me Too'd. And they're not happy that their movement now has been kind of illegitimized by the fact that no one's giving this victim credence or they're vilifying her. Whereas, we all watched the State of the Union address where all those women wore white.
Right.
Like they were the broken brides of the Me Too movement. And it's disgusting. And it's, anyone who has a brain can see the hypocrisy in it. And that's what I love to see is people who were clueless becoming like aware. Especially because, in Republicans, you guys all love it. This is your party. This is like your time to shine. You guys should be cheering. Like, we won. We're the victors. But it's nice to see Democrats come around and feel like, wow, when Michigan can be shut down, but Utah's open. If I was in Michigan and I was looking at Utah, I'd be pissed because I'd want to be out going.
You want the same rights that everybody else is.
Yeah, and how is
enjoying.
It different?
Right.
How is this virus different in Michigan than Utah?
Right.
We're all going to die here, but they're not going to die there. They're not all going to die there, but we're not going to die here. And so the nice part is that you're seeing people who have been normally in the dark and not political, or they've just had like their one political issue that they like to fight,
Right.
And it's nice to see people kind of breaking down because of this whole
Well, it's even constitutional.
Loss of freedom.
I doubt that Mark Pantano's on here. I think you know who he is. If you don't, he's an attorney that's very up on this stuff, and he's talking about all these different aspects. But one of the things that we're seeing that you're pointing out is you're not being treated equally under the law.
Yeah.
Yes, I understand that there are different states with different constitutions and all, but I always go back to the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights, which even in a situation like this, the states are obligated, and the counties and the cities obligated to ensure that the Constitution is followed. They can put in their controls, if they need to. But when they go too far, like the mayor of Chicago has, or the governor of Michigan, or the governor of California, the governor of New York, when they go too far, what they're creating is a situation where all of us are not being treated equally under the law. And that in itself is unconstitutional.
Yeah. You know what? I said we watched history being made with Whitmer's actions in Michigan.
Yeah.
Because Michigan just turned from blue to red before us.
I hope you're right about that. I'm not certain it went that far.
I'm right. Just
well,
you watch.
You don't
Just
argue
watch.
with a woman,
I'm really
right?
great with guessing how political sway goes. And you know why? This is my secret. Any article that you read where they allow comment sections, you get a great vibe on how people really feel. In any publication or any published article, whether it's a liberal article or a conservative article, the best thing is go to the comments.
And that's why a lot of these
And you
places
can really
have removed
see
the
that,
comments.
like a lot of,
Yeah.
it's great to see a liberal article get slammed.
Yeah.
Because even people are tired of this. And I was telling Roy, it's not like they just took away your school or your job. They took away prom. They took away graduation. They took away bar mitzvahs. They took away funerals. They took away weddings. They took away, your ability to go to your call to prayer. Like huge every major religion had a holiday.
Yeah.
That basically got canceled. Easter for Christians,
Right.
Ramadan for Muslims, all of it. And I think when you take away people's culture or their traditions, that's when they've now woken up.
Well, that's part of the leftist Marxist Cloward and Piven strategy, actually, is to take you away from those things that bind you together as a people.
But
because
that's the
they're
great
trying to
part.
separate.
It's like if you saw Memorial Day weekend, this weekend was so great.
Yeah, everybody
Everyone was like,
yeah.
flags! It used to be uncool to like fly the flag or be patriotic. And for once, it was, I think, cool to step outside and be like, I'm an American and I don't care. I'm going outside. Life, liberty, give me death or happiness.
Right.
It was really like
Right.
people finally getting so fed up that they wanted to just be outside. That's how.
And outside is the best place to be anyway.
Yeah. So, I say
absolutely.
kudos to America this Memorial Day weekend. You made me proud. It was nice to see. I've been really discouraged about our patriotism.
Right.
Because regardless of your party line, I think you should still be an American first.
Absolutely. 100%.
And so it was nice to see people get fed up and want to support just being an American.
Yeah, and that's great. And
So I like that.
It is a step in the right direction. The question is that at this point, if you don't mind me interjecting, the politicians now, what do politicians do when they're caught with their pants down? They have to save face. So you notice they're not just dropping
Unless
all this
you're Joe
BS.
Biden.
Well, he doesn't even bother to drop his pants. He takes care of it with his pants up. But the bottom line is that they're trying to save face now, and that I'm showing that across the board. And they just need to drop this. The thing I am worried about is that they have us, as I've said before, in a bad place right now. And they could hit us with a second wave that's more dangerous than this ever was. So just keep your wits about you. I just want to put that caution out there. Now you know where Debbie's coming from. I'm going to just give you the floor. What comes to your mind that you would like to discuss? I'll kind of set the table for this. One of the things that most of you might know, how I met Debbie and her friend who were doing some investigations, was to talk about some of the problems in Utah, which are really worldwide. And she doesn't want to get into any specific details because of, well, she can explain that, but maybe you can just touch on that so people will know.
So my friend Angela, she was responsible for passing a bill in Utah that basically put victims of polygamy. That's how we got to know Roy, because he was a polygamist, and so he let us interview him. So that's how we became friends. But so we wanted to make sure that anyone was fleeing polygamy could be on the victims fund, like anyone coming out of human trafficking or...
And those things exist there, and I've addressed that many times in the past. These subcultures are really no different than, you have good people in them and you have bad people in them, like you do any subculture.
Yeah.
And we want to get rid of the bad people. We want to stop them from being able to abuse folks, especially kids.
And in Utah, the polygamists are looked at as just kind of the weirder cousin to the Mormon religion, but in general harmless, big families usually. So the victims in that group kind of get put under the rug, and there's not a lot of resources. So what we did was open some resources up for victims of polygamy. Now, Utah recently just passed a bill to decriminalize polygamy, which will be interesting to see how that affects our state, because they weren't ever prosecuting it to begin with. So to decriminalize it makes no sense, because there was never an enforcement of the law.
Well, there was, but it's what they call...
you had to do something else first to get caught.
Yeah, actually it was selective enforcement. For instance, I was a perfect example of that. Debbie and I were talking about it the other day. I'll be careful how I say this, but, a lot of the police officers and Army folks had their extracurricular associations, I'll just put it that way, and they weren't concerned about those. The selective enforcement came down not to the act, which should have been the issue. It came down to why you did it. In other words, a mea culpa thing, which didn't really exist, because what they used as the condition was if you believed in it as a religious principle, then they came after you.
Yeah.
See, but if I just did it because, that's just what guys do, or girls for that matter, then it was okay. And that was the problem. It was a selective enforcement thing. What they're trying to do is control that. In other words, your First Amendment, again, that's what they were after to destroy. So that gets involved in that a little bit too. But I just wanted Debbie to touch on that. She doesn't want to get into real specifics because of...
Here's the thing too, you've heard rumor of Pizzagate, or you've heard rumor that there's human trafficking and that this is a huge problem. But to get inside these communities and start interviewing victims who have come out of these communities, you realize that when you have communities that are basically unprotected by the law, they're the most vulnerable to these types of abuse.
Exactly. Especially if they go underground.
Especially because most of these groups are working under the principle of being underground, non-trusting of government, non-trusting of police, non-trusting of those resources. And, in Utah, it is a huge problem. We do have a huge problem considering we are such a family-oriented state, and we do have so many children in our families per data.
Yeah, true.
We have usually 3 or 4 children, where the national average is 2.5.
Right.
But we're like number 8 for child sex abuse. So 1 out of 5 children in the state of Utah will be sexually abused before the age of 18, which seems incredibly high. And most of these are happening in these communities because they're not.
Yeah, well,
they're not reporting. They're not.
Right.
They're not being looked into. They're not going to schools. They're in homeschool. They're like, really, it's sad to see in America. I think that was the shocking thing for me, was that in America, someone who's born free is not free because of the religion that they were born into.
And I'll hasten to add here, of course, we know about the Catholic priests doing things to kids. Matter of fact, we talked about a specific example of that. So again, this isn't just that particular subculture, and I'm not defending it. What I'm trying to show you here is that this is a big problem. And when these things are under the radar, then that's when the really bad stuff can happen. However, we also know that the Mormon Church itself has actually protected some of this.
Yeah.
And I don't know how far you want to go on that, but as I've talked to a lot of you folks already, I was involved in a minor way, but definitely involved in it with Senator DeCamp on the Franklin cover-up situation, which involved, my aspect of it was tying certain ecclesiastical authorities to the crimes that occurred in Nebraska.
Yeah.
That's what I was doing. So how far are you willing to go with those types of situations?
Well, that's obvious. If you look in the Utah newspapers, they are now becoming more aware, and we're having more people report. And they're reporting instead of to their ecclesiastical leaders like they did in the past. They're going to the police. And I think that's a generational thing. Parents are less tolerant to try to find a spiritual way to fix that. They want so the nice thing is these guys are getting caught. But you've seen it where they have been in a position of authority. We have a lot of former bishops who have been recently arrested in the last year who have been perpetuators of abuse and
using their position to cover up what they do.
And we've also had a lot of victims who have come out and told their stories, and those stories are documented where they've basically said yes, and the church basically hid the abuse.
Right. And some people are bringing up, Eddelson always hits the nail on the head, and apparently he's talking to Diane Nolan. Maybe we should mention that this isn't just an ecclesiastical thing or a political thing. There are agencies like CPS that are actually involved in this. What can you tell us about that without giving out too much information?
Well, I just think anyone in Child Protective Services, if you've ever had Child Protective Services at your door, they're not there for the family or the child. I think that institution is broken.
Yeah, I think I mentioned
corrupt. Right. Because anyone I know who's been in Child Protective Services in Utah has not been fortunate.
Yeah, and actually,
or lucky, or had a good experience.
Right, and that's across the board. I was talking to Debbie yesterday actually, and when I did my homeless documentary, Homeless Camps, I actually talked to a girl. She was an adult at the time, but she was taken from her family and put into CPS and was trafficked throughout the CPS system. And she told me, you can see the interview on my Homeless Camps documentary. So there we have government agencies that are involved in it. Now we also know about the situation with human trafficking with DynCorp, for instance, which is a military contractor, and all of that came out to Congress several years ago and was exposed, and then it just kind of goes away. They cover those things up, but the fact of the matter is, I just wanted to point out that it's not just ecclesiastical or those things. That it's
not a Catholic thing. It's
right,
right. This is seeped into everything. Unfortunately, that's the poison that what is pedophilia is. It's affected everything good.
Right.
It's in every religion, it's in every institution, and
Disgusticle's making a good point here. Disgusticle says, would you allow a stranger to converse with your child in private? Then why sit them before television? And that also goes, there are legal protections for children that if they're accused of a crime, they have a right to have their basically what amounts to an attorney, their parent present. Or an attorney. The point is that the parents are permitted to be there to protect the child's interests. Unfortunately, when CPS gets involved, they remove the children from the parents, of course, and you'd think that it's for a justified reason, but sometimes, as I know from firsthand experience, it's to cause a rift in the family and to basically give an excuse to get the child away from. I'm not saying that, you know what I'm saying here, because of that exact thing happened to this young lady in Texas where I interviewed her. They used that as a presumption to get her away, so that then she had nobody to be her advocate. And that we see that happen all the time too. So there's abuse at the top of the system and outside the system. And unfortunately, the only way to change that is that we have to start looking. I always jump back to the Bill of Rights again. You still have a right to have yourself represented. But anyway, that's another issue. So how you think that covers it pretty well?
Yeah, but the one thing I like to cover is just I think you may not think people are waking up or becoming aware, but it's nice because on a paradigm on the outside looking in, a lot of people are waking up to the atrocities. You know, like if I would have talked to my dad 2 years ago about, you know, the fact that people were trafficking children or that would actually be going on, he would have never believed me. And the funny thing is, he even says, I totally believe it. These guys are all sick. And for him to come to that conclusion or for him to come to that reality, you know, that's huge. That means people are aware that things are wrong and there's a lot of corruption and power in our government. And I think a lot of people are seeing that the government has been acting in a self-serving way. And the one thing I do like about Trump is his America First policy, because all of his policies really do benefit the American people. When Hillary was selling uranium, who benefited?
Right.
When, you know, Biden's son was hanging out with the Ukrainians, who benefited? His son, not the American people. When they used our tax dollars to basically get rid of a political official investigating him.
Right.
That was our money used. That flat of money that went to Iran or, you know, thanks to Obama.
Right.
That didn't benefit us. The one thing I think is if you're going to use our tax dollars to help a nation or help an organization, it should benefit the American
Absolutely.
people.
And that was the big thing with Bundy Ranch.
And I think people are seeing that reality has not. That the government hasn't been working for the people.
Right. No, it's just like Dan Bongino said.
Especially with the way it has become totalitarian in some places.
Right.
Like California should be as free as, you know, South Dakota.
Right. I agree. So we've seen this across the board in so many things that the politicians are there taking care of themselves and the bureaucrats are there taking care of themselves. The intelligence agencies, as we often talk about, they're actually out there working for the banksters in the New World Order. They're not working for the American people. And we could rehash a lot of the things that I've talked about there, but I think Debbie's pointing out a very important thing here. And this has happened, whether Trump, my son actually said this, he says, whether or not Trump did this wittingly or unwittingly, the greatest thing he's done, and I agree, is that he's uncovered the corruption that we all just kind of went to sleep and didn't see. And this has been a great blessing for us. So where we go from here, people waking up, I don't necessarily like that term anymore, but I'll go with it. With people waking up, the next step is you got to do more than just be aware. You have to get involved. Whether it's like we're doing here, we're discussing, and this is probably a low situation where it's not really making a big effect. Helping people understand what's happened is important. But you're going to have to get more active. You're going to have to get in the face of these officials, these different bureaucrats and people, and lay down the law. And you use the Constitution, especially the Bill of Rights.
Show up on the Capitol with your guns, guys.
Yeah.
Let's do it. I love it. I love it. I literally, like, Michigan
that's right. Yeah.
was so great to see them stand up and protest.
Right.
Like,
and then Bolsonaro, like I just brought out, you know, the president of Brazil telling his defense minister, get the people armed that they can stand up against these mayors
Trump
and these.
has Epstein's lawyer. Dude,
do what now?
Trump.
Oh, okay.
Do we think Epstein's dead?
No, he's not dead. No, they got him out of there. I mean, think about this. We're going to talk about Epstein for just a second. If they put the shaft to Epstein and let him die in prison, who else in that system would ever trust them again? Right? They've got to reward Epstein so they can keep the other people, you know, interested.
You know, I blame the justice system for that. I don't blame
sure.
Trump. I blame Barr.
Well, Barr is I don't disagree. My problem is that Trump let him get away with it. So that's my problem. But well, I'm not going to go there today.
No, I mean, to die like that in jail.
Yeah. Well, it's like Lionel says, and most of you people that follow Lionel, he says, you know, Barr is probably the only person in the whole world that believes that Epstein committed suicide. Where does that put Barr's credibility? It's pretty bad, you know, when that happens. But we know who he's trying to protect, which brings up another issue.
What?
What is your feeling about Hillary? Did you see that face she just made? I want to hear about Hillary.
Hillary is the worst human on the planet ever. Hillary's awful. I mean, I'm going to say it because literally she supported her crappy husband and all his philandering and his abuse through his whole presidency and called it a right-wing conspiracy. And then had the nerve to turn around and then pretend like, Bill wasn't a pervert.
Yeah. And then slam other people with made-up things.
And literally, the things she's gotten away with, her private server, that alone blew my mind. The fact that they would put her up on a pedestal and try to get her in office after her whole debacle as Secretary of State is laughable. And it's almost, it either shows how totally out of touch Democrats are with what the American people want. I can't figure it out because now they're trying to push Joe Biden.
Yeah.
I don't know. It makes no sense. I mean, there's not a lot going on, but Hillary, I'm so glad she'll never get near a political office again.
Well, let's hope not. Let's hope that she doesn't.
Oh,
I'm not sure what they're working up now.
She's so old and falling apart now. It's great. She's past her prime.
Well, let's hope so. I definitely want her out of the picture. But you know what? The bad thing about the evil side, you put this one down, there's always somebody else that pops up. I wonder who that next one's going to be. By the way, what do you think of Nancy Pelosi? I mean, we can't have this conversation without talking about Pelosi.
Is like the crypt keeper. I don't even think anyone can take her seriously because watching her talk, even my friends are like, what's wrong with Nancy?
Well, plus she can't carry a conversation or she can't carry a thought to its natural conclusion.
Here's the thing. I'm kind of happy. It's happened to the Republican Party where you've lost some of your problem children.
Yeah.
Sorry, McCain, you're gone.
Yeah. No, Megan might get upset at that statement.
I know.
But
she's not going to like me. But here's the nice thing is some of those Democrats are really getting old too. Like Nancy, come on. How did she not get COVID? That's when you know it's not killing anyone because if anyone should have been choking over and dying, it's that woman because she's barely hanging on by thread and Botox.
Okay, well, that's the older generation. What do you think of AOC and Imhan, whatever her name is? Omar, Imhan, Oran, whatever the heck it is. Umran, yeah. What do you think
they don't have any strong... There's never going to be a Barack Obama again in that party because it's not... They want it to be a woman, and it's hard to get women to compete in a political world with men because they just are too emotional.
Whoa!
To be...
See why I like her? She's right there.
I mean, there's not... I don't see it. AOC does not have the swagger or the chops to hang. All she sounds like is a whiny bartender every time she gets up. So her career is short-lived. Ilhan Omar, man, her own problem is her own making. Her own representation within her community looks bad. Her having an affair. It's a religious community. I don't know what kind of...
They stone them in Somalia.
Sorry, I don't know what she thinks Muslims do, but I know some Muslims and they're very traditional and they don't cheat on their spouse. That's not how they like to represent. And She has not been a good representative for that community. And I don't think her community is going to keep on supporting her because she is not living up to the values. And if she is supposed to be a woman of importance, I would think, I know how my community I was raised in, they would want someone who was religious and conservative or supporting those values. So I don't see how she's going to last very long. And
okay.
They don't have any rising stars. I don't.
You don't see any at this point anyway.
No, because all of them sound so radical. Mm-hmm. There was how many Democratic candidates, and all of them sounded like crazy socialists.
So where do you see the country going now? And then we'll kind of take some questions. Where do you see the country going? Do you really do you really believe Americans are waking up? Do you really think that we're going to be able to overcome this? Because everybody knows I'm very pessimistic about it. So now you see that there seems to be some type of an action to actually overcome this and to move forward. So how do you view the future?
I see, you know what the thing is? I think they pushed too far. I think they did. I think they overstepped it. They overplayed their hand and their cards with the fear porn and the we're all going to die and don't touch a shopping cart but run to McDonald's. Like, I think people been in, like, I feel like we all went down the rabbit hole and lived in Alice in Wonderland of, you know, are we going to die? Are we not going to die? Are we going to get the cough? Are we not going to get the cough?
And they kept
Do I have a
changing.
job? Yeah, and I think people have been through this spin cycle, and I think the one thing is I think they overplayed it, and
Do you think it was deliberate?
No, I think they assume a lot. And I think if you run, maybe if there was some kind of model that they tried to like run a test through, you can never determine what the human spirit will do. That's incalculable. Like, you can't predict that. And especially when you've pushed someone, you can't say what that person will do when pushed. And everyone in this situation has been pushed on one level or another. They either lost their job or they had the stress of homeschooling their kids.
Or they couldn't go out to dinner.
And then they're making meals every day and they've never been a good home cook. Like, a lot of things changed for people. And I think that's what happened is a lot of people got pushed. And now that because of having a 24-hour news cycle and seeing, you know, a story out of New York that makes no sense when you're sitting, you know, like in Utah.
Right.
It's weird to see Times Square totally void of people and my State Street hopping. And I think that's what people will see is they're like, this makes no sense.
I'm originally from Maryland. And I saw, and I don't remember where it was. I thought it was in the Epoch Times, but it may have been somewhere else. Where Ocean City, Maryland, where I spent a lot of my summers when I was in high school, it was jam-packed this weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't talk about social distancing. That was a joke. I mean, there were some people wearing masks, but these are Marylanders and probably some travelers. But Maryland is a very liberal Democratic state. And to see all those people just say, to hell with this, we're going to go out and we're going to have a nice weekend. I was going, yeah.
Well,
so,
Florida had
exactly.
the big parade. There was over, I think, 500 yachts that participated. And they went up and did a whole run. And it was Trump. It was America. I mean, they were, it was a full-on parade. That's why I said I think they've pushed people too far. I think... And I don't think they predicted that. I think they thought we would roll over like China did.
Yeah.
And just say, tell us when we can come outside. Tell us when we're ready.
Well, they've been trying to program us to that for a long time, so we don't want to lose the gains we've made here, that's for sure.
And you know who controlled this whole thing? The non-clappers. The people who can't hear this. The people that have to do this. You know, I think they assumed a lot of us are like this. Like, oh... But really, they realize there's a lot of us that still like to clap and can take it.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a few questions here. We don't want to keep everybody too long. Is there anything else that you wanted to cover before I take some questions? Anything that's standing out that you feel it's important?
Yeah. I'm going to still remain a Democrat as long as Mitt Romney is still a Republican and in my state. That is true. I'm
Mitt
sorry.
Romney.
That's my only confession.
Well, no, that's legitimate. I couldn't believe that the people of Utah voted Mitt Romney, and I mean, with his history and what he's done, I just and then the way he turned on Trump. I mean,
I don't know how the guy got elected because he didn't campaign here. He barely put any signs up here. It's like he kind of just walked in and assumed he was going to get it. But I'm sorry, but the guy Kennedy that he was running against, they were toe to toe, and that guy campaigned. And he should have won.
Yeah. Well, Mitt Romney controls the voting machines. Yeah. And Mitt Romney, in case you folks don't know, the Romney name in Utah is closely associated with the general authorities in the church. And so that had a big play in it.
He saved the Olympics. It's so great. Right. So anyway, that's my why I'm still a Democrat. Because Mitt Romney is still a Republican.
Well, see, I like that kind of Democrat. All right, so that's good. Like I said, I was married to one.
I'm an anti-Romney Democrat.
Well, let's see what some folks are saying here, if there are any questions that we can... all right, let's see.
I know. Not.
Mitt the Twit. Oh, jeez.
It's so embarrassing. You know what the funny thing is, though? Mitt's even looking embarrassing. Like, he can't even come out and have any... Like, every time he talks, he gets slammed.
Well,
by even his own constituents. It's great. I love it. Sorry.
Robert M. Stahl says, it has gone postal, and it needs to continue to go postal,
Yeah.
Stahl. It does, absolutely. Let me see if we got anything else here that I can bring up. This is interesting.
Yeah.
Star lives in Las Vegas, and she says, my whole neighborhood was gathering, barbecuing, shooting off fireworks, and not wearing masks or gloves. And what did Governor Sisolak do, Star? Did he send the LVPD in there or the state troopers?
Did I vote for Obama? Yes.
Okay.
And I'm going to say this because I'm very much anti-McCain.
And that alone was the reason.
That alone is the reason.
Yeah.
And then, I'm sorry, no, I did not vote for Mitt Romney. No. That's the thing. I'm sorry, Republicans.
Tell us how you really feel.
Republicans, you didn't give me a lot to work with. I'm sorry. Maybe your party will get better. My party is going to, take a nosedive, and maybe they'll get better.
Gerald Lemoyne, why would you say Roy voted for Obama? You know what?
Debbie did. Did you vote for a Green Party guy, or did you vote for Mitt?
No, I'm not from Utah. I can't even vote here.
No, for president.
I voted for myself.
You did? You put yourself
I did. God, there was nobody else Now, when Trump was running, I voted for Trump.
Okay.
Okay, I did do that. But in other elections, I've actually written myself in. Because I couldn't find anybody. Like Mitt Romney? No way. So, I wasn't involved in that election, but that's the type of thing. Well, for instance, in Wyoming, Liz Cheney was running for House of Representatives again, right? And some people might know here, I was considering running for Senate because there was a Senate seat that was going to come open. But then I realized, I don't need to get in after what I did with running for sheriff back, in Salt Lake County.
I agree.
thought,
the left-right paradigm is a fraud.
Yeah, it is.
I think most people are waking up to that, too.
I hope so.
That we're not left or right as much as we thought, because I know a lot of people like me who have been Democrats where they really don't like being associated with a bunch of commie socialists. It's very embarrassing to say they're Democrats.
Yeah, sure.
Because if you are a Democrat, people think that you're a baby killer and that you want free money for everyone and an illegal, living in your house. So
yeah, and
I think people are realizing we can have a lot of different values on either side of the paradigm.
But there's some things that have to be in concrete. For instance, like what you just said, the Bill of Rights situation, not going along
Maybe
with
they'll start teaching history in school now. Yeah. Oh, because they had a homeschool and they'll actually learn something at home? That's the funny part. How much of that got screwed up?
So how do you feel about Obama now? Eddelson James is asking.
One of the most corrupt... I think he ruined the office of the presidency. You would have thought Bill had really taken it to town by just disrespecting the office of the presidency. But Obama literally, I believe, was the Manchurian candidate. And he really was there to serve globalist agenda. And you can see that by the damage that he did to our economy and the American people. And basically, the whole judicial system has basically been corrupted by him and all of his judges and his appointments. And he put in a lot of, there's a lot of bad seeds.
Yeah. Do you think, this is kind of outside the box, but I'm not saying it would ever happen, but do you think that Obama should be arrested for sedition, treason, whatever might apply? Or do you think the presidents should always be off limits?
No. Was Nixon off limits?
No, that's what I'm saying. So you think that Obama should be held accountable?
Yeah.
All right.
I think Obama, Hillary, everyone.
Are you listening, Barr? Are you listening?
I think all of them, literally, because you can't have a two-tier justice system. Otherwise, you have anarchy. And what we've seen here is, and what we're getting tired of, is the two-tier justice system.
Right.
Because if any of us as civilians acted in this manner or did anything remotely if I was sending top secret information, so now I had
no kidding.
I would never see the light of day. And I think that's where, the hard part is, if you've been following this story, you've known these facts for 3 years. And the frustrating part is watching the news media act like this is a new revelation. Like, oh my gosh, there was
it's not
communication that proves this. And it's like, we didn't need that to believe it. We understood that it was wrong from the get-go. We don't need this burden of proof, but it's now like we've been drugged through, the Mueller investigation. And then we've been drugged through like all these investigations to try to prove something, but no one wants to investigate the things that should be investigated.
Right. I think, just to interject there, the same situation, I've given a lot of credence, for instance, to Judicial Watch, Tom Fitton. Yeah. They uncovered things. Sidney Powell in the Flynn situation, they've uncovered all this. So it's all out there.
You have independent journalists doing more for this story. And thank God for them, because they're keeping this story from getting buried.
Right.
But, I mean, some days I read the headlines, and it's unbelievable that it's a blip. Because, if, this story was affecting Trump. Like, if Trump came out and said, you ain't black if you vote
whoa.
Literally, the field day would commence. If he had a private server, if Ivanka had a private server right now in her basement,
she got in trouble for having a cell phone that wasn't on the
mainstream media would be having a field day. And so I think the story's alive, and thank God for independent journalism. And, thank goodness that this Flynn case has now come out, and that Judge Sullivan is doing unprecedented things that even have made, people who say they understand the rule of law go, holy cow, this guy's
that
rogue.
Well, that writ of mandamus that he's been issued, I hope they could remove him based on that right now and get a new judge on the case. So I hope that they don't hold back. The district court there they should remove him from the case. Writ of mandamus should be upheld against Sullivan 100%. So we'll see what happens with that. Where's Justice Roberts in all this? We had the abuses in the FISA court.
Yeah.
Now we have this situation with Flynn, with a federal court judge. Where the hell's John Roberts? That's what I want to know. What, it's going to go up the chain? Okay, I know that. It's gone to, for the writ of mandamus. But still, there should be some things happening in the justice system, and Roberts is sitting on it.
Mel Gibson 20.
Hey, I'd go for that. I'd go for that in a heartbeat. Let's see if there's anything else here. We've been going for about 55 minutes, and I don't want to take too much advantage of Debbie. This was very nice.
Well, and part of me, I have to watch Roy, get on his soapbox. And so, every once in a while, we have to talk, and I have to pull him back down off the soapbox a little bit.
Yeah, she does that. Yeah, I agree. Actually, a lot of people do. But,
Well, because as a Democrat who's constantly hated for most of my opinions, it's really funny.
By Democrats.
It's fun to be like a conservative Democrat in this day and age. And it's fun to see, some of my friends really all of a sudden pay attention. It makes me so happy. They've been clueless forever. It's so hard to have people who don't pay attention to anything political when it affects everything in their daily life. And I think this is the first time they've seen how politics can affect your daily life.
There's a Greek philosopher, I forget the name, somebody will probably remind me here, but he said, you may not be interested in politics, but politics will always be interested in you. So you've got to watch what's happening. I agree, 100%. Well, let's see. We're coming up on
I think by 4th of July.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
Because there's no 4th of July. They canceled it. So I think people are going to
do their own thing
and really celebrate.
Yeah.
They're not going to be told how to celebrate.
Yeah. Maybe there'll be some, overseas where these people in these third world countries that we've occupied, they have more rights than we do in a lot of ways. For instance, in Afghanistan and Iraq, in the Balkans, they have celebratory fire with AK-47s. They have more rights, Second Amendment wise, than Americans do right now.
Well,
can you imagine us all going out and celebratory firing in our neighborhoods?
Can you?
What would the cops be going? What do we do? Because everybody would be out.
They would just shoot you in the street,
Well,
literally. Yeah, they would think you were
Yeah.
out to kill someone, and they just take you down like a dog. So, no, it's true. I have a friend in Pakistan who grows
That's right.
weed in his garden.
Yeah.
And he was showing. We exchanged gardening advice, and he was showing me that he can. And he's like, "You can't grow that." I'm like,
No.
not in Utah.
No.
And he thought
Not
that was
anywhere.
amazing. Like, how can you not grow a weed? And well, I'm not that free.
And they don't call it weed for nothing. It grows anywhere and everywhere. I mean, it doesn't take anything to do it. But of course, anybody who studied that knows that was a move by the big pharma to, interfere with that. And they used, how that came about. They said that Mexicans, when they got on marijuana, killed white women. That's where that came from. They actually pushed that in the 30s.
Yeah. Hey, and I want to say this, New York Times. If you're going to publish an article with a bunch of dead people's name on it, next time publish an article with how many people have died because of an opioid crisis. And then let's talk about who's really dying in the streets and what's really a pandemic. And I'm sorry, it's opioids. It's not the cough.
And with that, I think we'll close down. I think that probably just said it all. New York Times, take note. Okay?
I don't like him.
Any final words?
No, that was it.
That was it. And I think that's a good way to end. So we'll go ahead and close this down. Again, I want to thank you, Debbie, for doing this. After our little situation where we talked about bars,
we didn't want
bartending.
everyone thinking I was just
Yeah.
a reckless, mouthy drunk.
Yeah, which isn't the case at all. As a matter of fact, when she talks about subject matter, I gotta listen. So, and I do, and I appreciate that. So. Thanks, everybody, for coming. I can't say when I'll be up again, how soon it'll be. But remember to keep your eyes on the horizon and your ears close to the ground. Keep your situational awareness on high. There are a lot of suicides. The cure has been worse than the original disease. Absolutely.
I can't imagine if anyone had a mental health issue, how this has been incredibly hard.
Well, not even a mental health issue. I mean, you lose the way to support your family. You
lose your support. You can't go out. You can't see your friends. You can't go.
Remember, it's about destroying those things.
It's destroyed a lot of people, and I think a lot of people are, like I said, they went too far.
Yeah, they did. So this is what we do, okay? You don't need to wear masks, I can tell you that. You don't need to social distance, and I proved that with her, okay? Actually, I went to a restaurant yesterday. I think you guys saw it. I had breakfast. I guess it was Sunday. Anyway, and everybody was wearing a mask in there except me. And I made a big deal about it. So, all right. So thanks, everybody, for coming. We'll see you next time. Marty Lauderdale, thank you. She thanks you. Okay. Debbie, this is really sometimes a very hard thing to do when you put yourself out there like this. You get a lot of ridicule. You get people that then want to cause you difficulties. But I got to warn you about something. You don't want to mess with this lady. She will take you to the cleaners.
Apparently, I can get scary. I don't know. It's fun.
It's a good thing. So, everybody, thanks for coming. We'll talk to you next time.
Peace out.
Out here.